is James Whitburn. I work for a company called TLA ESP, which holds the master license for the Rugby World Cup.
And your particular role with ESP?
I am the licensing director, which means I look after the whole program. I manage the program of licensees. I also liaise with Rugby World Cup on a range of commercial issues. And my role sort of has changed from the start of this program 2.5, 3 years ago. At the moment, I'm concluding the last few deals, licensing deals, but originally it was more of a sales role, finding the licensees, getting them signed up and so
on. And you work for World Rugby as opposed to ER 2015, or a bit of both?
No, as a master licensee, we hold the license from Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
So we hold the master rights. We don't actually make anything ourselves. We just license out the rights to, as I said, around 40 licensees that we've got.
That license is granted by World Rugby as opposed to
That's correct. So World Rugby has created a wholly owned subsidiary called Rugby World Cup Limited, and the rights flow from them to us via their commercial agent, IMG, who look after the sponsorship and the broadcast side of things as well. So we work very closely with IMG as well.
And I guess also 2015, because they're part of, it's all about fan zones and all
absolutely
that stuff
right.
too.
Absolutely right.
And I can imagine, much like many major events, it does go from being quite calm and long-term planning to suddenly that it's 6 months away and...
Yeah, I mean, we're in an exciting period at the moment because we're moving into an operational positioning now. We've gone from our long-term strategy, we've got the licensees up and running, and really now we're looking at what it'll do over the tournament time, which is the major selling period for us, 6 weeks before, and then right the way through the tournament.
And if you, from the beginning, how would you measure your objectives, or how would you tick the box of success come the end of the process?
It's a challenging one for us on measuring success because we're judged really on the numbers and what royalties we can generate. But I've always said that licensing is far more than that. It's an extension of the brand. It's a consumer touch point, and we feel we've created consumer touch points right the way across the board for every price point there is. And an exciting, vibrant program is more than just numbers on a page. It's to get the spectators excited, fan zones, it's to get people, I mean, Twickenham is incredible on a match day, and it's just adding to that experience. And it was also doing new and different things as well. So our plush licensee is Shaun the Sheep. So we've got Shaun the Sheep throwing the rugby ball around, and that's brought a whole new range of fans and engagement to the tournament. So we're excited about that.
And it's that whole thing about a pre-existing, I know he's not the mascot, Shaun,
no,
but that's that pre-existing character that somehow he's got a bit of momentum, a brand momentum.
He's a movie star who's just come in to play some rugby, and I've always felt that is the right way of doing an event-driven mascot. I think people have already fallen in love with Shaun. If you get him dressed up in a rugby kit and throwing the ball around, you've got a much better chance of success when you're trying to sell plush, rather than an Olympic Games approach where you've got to educate people of what that mascot is first of all. So I'm really pleased with Rugby World Cup's approach to actually making that happen.
Can you give us an idea of the number of different categories, of the types of categories that you sell licenses in?
Yeah, I mean we've got quite a wide range. Our largest category is apparel, and then and that's Canterbury and Sportfolio, who are doing our rugby shirts, sportswear and lifestyle. Where we've got 3 shops already up and running: Oxford Street, Covent Garden, and a new one in Cardiff, which we're excited about. And that license also has the retail rights online, so there's a web store where you can buy online. Plush is an important category for us, as well as key rings, pins, and the other major deal that we do is match day programs and publishing. We're lucky enough to have Trinity Mirror as our match day program licensee, and they are going to produce 48 programs for the matches, as well as a pre-tournament magazine and a guide to the rules of rugby and so on and so forth. We'll have Carlton Books also producing a coffee table book and a guide, and kids books and activity books. And we have a travel guide as well for inbound travellers who are coming in. So there's a good publishing mixture of licensees, big and small.
Can you give us a kind of a comparative idea of how your operation is compared to, say, the last World Cup, Rugby World Cup, or compared to other major sports events? Because it'd be interesting to make the comparison.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult to compare the last two Rugby World Cups, but you end up invariably doing that. 2011 was hugely successful because of the New Zealand effect, I think, New Zealand winning. But it was a comparatively small market, but also comparatively uncluttered. So you're really comparing apples with oranges to some degree. And 4 years ago, the world was a very different place. I think it's very hard to say at this stage because, benefit of hindsight, I think New Zealand did extremely well for the size it was, but there were a series of factors which made that happen. France is more difficult to compare, but probably a better comparison, and I think we're tracking pretty much on a par with that programme. But I also think this one will be the largest and biggest and most successful one ever.
Yes.
If you compare where they were at last time around.
When you've looked at how you were going to approach it and you were planning, did you look at any particular model in events, whether it's Olympics or Football World Cup, or as a template for what you wanted to do? Is there a shining light there? It
is interesting because you generally do look for precedents of what happened before, and I think that's what happens at all of these sorts of tournaments. They're looking at what happened before, and if you go back to Australia 2003 followed the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. So you've got a nice case study there, as it were. We're following an incredibly successful London 2012, which, for much of that run-up was not was viewed as lukewarm, and no one really got excited about it. And then suddenly you had this upswell of excitement in 2012. So it's been useful to follow that template and benefit from the awareness that this is going to be the next big thing. This is the next big world event, and it's happening in the UK. This one, I think, because England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland are all in the tournament, there's a huge following of rugby in this country. We think 12 million avid fans, but I would suggest that the other 50 million people in this country feel very positively towards the values of rugby. And that's what makes it a nice programme to sell, because of this. And you look at all of the reports that they've done, all of the customer research. It is viewed as a positive sport that's aspirational, that's got values of respecting the rules, and so for us that's a huge advantage from a sales perspective, especially when you're trying to commandeer space in store in places like Tesco's, who are looking to invest behind these sorts of values.
Yes.
So, it's a different animal to an Olympics, and it has to be recognised as such. We're a more commercial programme, but we're never going to compete on the scale of an Olympics in terms of a merchandising programme. But I think we punch above our weight, and I think the product is, in my view, there's more to it and there's more quality to it. But
when we do these face-to-face interviews, we like to talk about opportunities, but we also like to ask about threats too. Sure. And I'm assuming that the biggest threat is, in terms of timing, is that it's a one-off event. It's about the sale of products that need a timeline to be manufactured or to be produced or delivered. Is that you've got a window where you have to perform? I
think that there is a window, and we quite like that because there's a bit of pressure on us. So it is that one-off, and it's a once in a blue moon opportunity to actually do something massive. I think that's how they sold the Olympics as well, which was right. Our tournament is much longer than a 12, 15-day Olympic Games. We we've got 6 weeks, and there's downtime, and there's time to go shopping, and there's time to absorb it all. And there are different peaks because we have the pool games, then the quarters, and then the final. You know, the tournament develops and builds up over a 6-week period. The main threat to a lot of these sort of events, I think, is often the ticket sales, and the ticket sales have been extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very positive indicator for us. You know, I think they've already sold the bulk of the tickets, and you know, we'll take our cues from that. The threat for us, and it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this interview, is just the awareness of the programme as a whole needs to be front and centre now, because the next few months for us as the licensing programme is critical, whereas the tournament will only really kick off in the sort of cluttered media of this country after the election.
Yes.
And probably during the Webb Ellis Trophy Tour, which will happen all around the UK. So that's when most of the marketing will start to kick in for that second phase, which is a little bit too late for us because we want to get it up and running now.
Yeah. We have a lot of readers, subscribers, viewers in this particular case who are from the elite club background in Union especially, who have retail facilities. If they wanted to stock licensed World Cup product, would they come to you or would they come to a central supply?
So I mean, either way, we try and make it as easy as possible for buyers to buy. So we have a list of our licensees in a publication which will be coming out shortly. The latest iteration of it will be coming out shortly. And obviously they can come to me and have those conversations as well. A lot of those stores will be in the venues that are going to be used for Rugby World Cup, so there's conversations already happening with England 2015 and the RFU and so on and so forth. So I've been round to all of the venues that have those stores, like Exeter Chiefs, for example, and met them and we've had the conversations. But there will be others like Northampton, where some of my licensees already do sell, or Saracens, for example. One of my licensees is very closely connected with Saracens. So those conversations are happening, and yes, we welcome the maximum exposure of product on shelf, really.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, and very good luck with it.
Thank you.